Hello, and welcome to the GRACE podcast series. My name is Denise Brock, and I am the Operations Director for the Global Resource for Advancing Cancer Education, or GRACE. In this podcast series, we interview patients, advocates, and healthcare professionals to provide the most updated information for our community and to highlight important issues facing those dealing with a cancer diagnosis. We hope you find this information valuable. For questions or comments, please visit us at cancergrace.org.
I wanted to end the talk, just a brief mention on clinical trials in melanoma. There are a lot of misconceptions about clinical trials, but the way that I think about clinical trials in melanoma, the way that we're testing new types of treatments and doing things better, is that we want to do trials so that we can take the best treatment that's available now and add a new investigational treatment that we believe scientifically could help our existing treatment function better. So that's one context for trials. The other context for trial could be a new investigational drug to try when other standard treatments have not been effective. And at our institution at Sloan Kettering and many other institutions around the country, many clinical trials are testing investigational approaches when standard drugs have not been effective for patients with different kinds of melanoma. But I will reiterate, and a lot of people think about clinical trials and they worry that they're going to get what's called a placebo, which is an inactive treatment. Clinical trials in melanoma, at least in the stage 3 unresectable and stage 4 setting where we really know that you need treatment, it is not a test of an inactive treatment or a placebo versus an effective treatment. All of these are what you would be doing normally plus something else, or the trial would be testing a new drug that we think has some kind of promise in a setting where standard treatments have not been effective. And this is kind of just a funny cartoon where there's a little kid perhaps crying in a bedroom and two parents outside the room saying, "Honey, go talk to him. He just found out he's a placebo." And a placebo is that inactive treatment. But I will tell you that in the melanoma field, in settings where treatment is absolutely needed, we don't have these trials where there's a placebo. And so make sure you talk to your doctors about this, but please don't be afraid of clinical trials and that you're only going to get a placebo, because in the vast majority of trials, and certainly all the melanoma trials where treatment is indicated, these are not trials that involve placebo. So patients in some ways like being part of trials because it gives alternatives when no standard options exist, or even a feeling of security given that patients in trials are taken care of with even more attention to detail than in standard care, because there's a lot of information and data that we collect about a patient's experience. So more checks, more blood work, more attention in some of the ways on a lot of the levels of detail, because these are investigational approaches. And also a sense of contributing to the medical knowledge. And one of the patients that wrote a book about her melanoma experience had some really great quotes, which basically says, I'm hoping I'm contributing to something too. I've signed off on giving blood and tissue and whatever anyone else wanted for genetic studies or research. But on good days that this patient felt really connected to something very big and felt like having melanoma as a disease and as an illness contributed to something more positive. And I will say clinical trials are not only to offer the patient the best treatment option in their particular situation, but also to contribute to medical knowledge for everybody and helping move the field forward, because all of these advances I talked about today have really originated in prior patients that were in clinical trials, and I give them a lot of credit. So with that, I'll summarize. For the treatment of melanoma, our immune systems can be used. BRAF mutations are in about 40 to 50% of melanoma, and in those patients, targeted therapy is an option, but usually it's after immunotherapy in stage 3 unresectable melanoma or stage 4 melanoma. Uveal melanoma can be treated successfully by a new drug called tebentafusp, which is a huge advance, and I think we're going to see ongoing improvements in that area. And to think about clinical trials as you go throughout your journey and talk to doctors about all of these options. And I hope this provided a general introduction on some of the different types of drugs and the ways that we're treating advanced melanoma in 2022.
Thank you again for joining us. This podcast was made possible by the generosity of sponsorship from our friends at Lilly and Exelixis. Please like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Send us feedback, share your story, donate, and visit us for more information at cancergrace.org. Thank you for listening.